So we're in your government book. We're in chapter 5 now, which has to do with Congress. We've already talked about what Congress is. Congress being that legislative body. The Constitution gives all legislative powers to make laws under the Congress, under our Congress. Congress includes, the House of Representatives and the Senate. So, Article 1, Section 7 of Article 1 establishes the structures and procedures for Congress and how this is a major responsibility to make our laws. Of course, Congress has a couple other responsibilities, that being representing their constituents, which are people, us, right? And also it oversees the other branches of government, especially the executive branch. So Congress oversees the president on many issues and also the bureaucracies and administrations under the executive branch. And we'll talk about that later. So lawmaking, as I said before, the Constitution gives all legislative power to Congress. In fact, there are 9,000 bills and resolutions that are introduced in Congress each year, and only 10% of those are adopted and made into laws. So we're going to talk about bills. Congress can pass both bills and resolutions. Typically, a bill is a proposed new law, right? And a resolution is a formal statement of opinion or determination adopted by the Congress, adopted by the Legislative Assembly. There's simple resolutions, joint resolutions, concurrent resolutions, and we'll talk about them. But let's go back and talk about the bills, these bills. Bills, again, are proposed new laws, and they become a law and by the act of Congress when it passes through both houses. A bill has to pass through the House of Representatives and also the House of Senate. The Senate is the upper house and the House of Representatives. And then it has to be signed by the President of the United States before it becomes a law. It has a process, and we're going to go over this process. There are public bills here. Public bills apply to the nation at large. Public bills have to do with like tax measures, copyright laws, service appropriations, for like veterans and such. These are all public bills. And then of course we have private bills, which only apply to individual citizens or individual groups of citizens. So we have public bills and private bills, and then a bill being a proposed new law. So a resolution, again, a resolution is a formal statement of opinion or determination adopted by a legislative, let's go up here, by the Legislative Assembly. So I'm directing in your book. You can read along on some of these things. So as you can see here, there are different kinds of resolutions. Basically, a simple resolution. Now, these are all put forth by the Legislative Assembly. There's three kinds. Simple resolution is passed by only one house, like one of the houses passed, and it's dealing with only one house. So it's like dealing with the House of Representatives, or it's dealing with the Senate. So that's a simple resolution, and it doesn't go through both houses at that time. A joint resolution has to do with both houses and has to be signed by the President. So a simple one just goes through one house. Joint one is jointly both houses, signed by the President. A concurrent resolution is passed by both houses and deals with matters that need joint action, but that's no formal law. So a resolution is more of a statement of opinion or determination that's adopted, but a bill will go into becoming a law, right? Is a proposed bill. There's only one house that may introduce revenue or taxes. Which house is that? It's the House of Representatives. So because in the beginning the House of Representatives represented the people and were represented by votes from the people at that point, until later on as it was amended, that the Senate was, you'd vote for senators. In the beginning, senators were picked by the state congresses would pick the senators, and now, of course, senators, we elect them, right? We vote for them. But at the beginning, the taxes were, of course, even with our Declaration of Independence, one of the main things is that we wanted no taxation without representation. So they wanted to make sure that the people were voting, and so that vote put only the House of Representatives could deal with taxation. So just know, if there's any revenue right to tax or anything like that, it will has to go through the House of Representatives. So getting a bill through. So let's talk about getting a bill through. So getting a bill through is like running an obstacle race, and we're going to go through this. There's going to be some major hurdles that we'll have to go through, right? So we have a bill and it's going to go through. So where does it have to go first? And then where does it go from there? And what's the end point of becoming a law? So let's go through some of that. So first of all, the introduction here. To be introduced, a bill must be written. Who can write this bill? A bill must be written by, actually, anyone can really put it together. An individual citizen, a special interest group, maybe some members of the executive branch or Congress members can put forth and write a bill. But it only can be introduced formally by members of Congress. So could it only be introduced by either someone, a congressman or a woman from the House of Representatives, or a senator, right? So, but again, they can receive this bill from someone else. And of course, only the House of Representatives can actually introduce anything to do with money, right? So you wouldn't go to the Senate if you had a bill that had to do with getting money. You always go through the House. Bills can be dropped off in a hopper box alongside the clerk's desk. In the House of Representatives, they do that. In the Senate, any senator can introduce a bill on the floor. So they can get up and introduce a bill. So, but in the House, they have a hopper box. They put them in. That's because there's so many more, 435 in the House of Representatives, and only 100 senators. So, and bills have a sponsor, and some of the bills have co-sponsors that sponsor the bill. There's also bipartisan bills. Bipartisan, bi means two, and partisan means party. So it means that that bill is sponsored by both parties. So a bipartisan bill would be that both parties like that bill or are sponsoring that bill. Otherwise, the bills have a certain sponsor, a certain party, and some have co-sponsors. So for bills. So committee action. So let's get down here to committee action. Committee action is, then we introduced it, it has to go to the committees. And it's assigned to a committee, and most of the action, when I say committee action takes place in the committees. In fact, Woodrow Wilson said Congress in its committee room is at work. So he says the main work actually happens in Congress in the committees. Let's go on to the next here. We're going to go over this, how a bill comes in law, but let's go over the committees first. So the members of Congress vote on a bill, and it's based on the recommendations of the committee sponsoring. So the committee goes all the way through. It organizes its workload for the bill. It screens out the bills that it doesn't want. So a committee can say, we don't like these bills. And so they can screen them out. That's how come we have 9,000 bills in and only a few of them get through. Only a few of them get through the committees. And most bills die in the committee. Some bills are what's called pigeonholed. And what is pigeonholed? You remember if you ever had a roll top desk and you had all these little compartments in the top, and you'd put something in there and you just forget about it? They called that pigeonholed. And that's what they do with some bills. They just pigeonhole them, hide them, and forget about them. So if a bill is pigeonholed, it's really just set aside and forgotten, right? So that's pigeonholed. So in the committee action screens the bills and actually gets rid of a lot of the bills in some way. And sometimes it goes to what's called up here a subcommittee. So a subcommittee, what's a subcommittee? Well, the bills start undergoing hearings. And so a subcommittee, because it's already in a committee, they think they need more hearings on it, so they bring it to another committee. So a subcommittee is a committee within a committee. So the bill may go there, and then after it's finished with the committee and referred the subcommittee, then the subcommittee says, okay, we've already looked at it, and they send it back to the original committee. And so it goes from subcommittee back to committee, where then it has to be voted on all over again by the committee. So when it's finally passed by the committee, it's placed on what's called a congressional calendar. And on the congressional calendar, it then waits for a vote on the House floor. So from the committee, it's going to go to the floor to be argued, debated on, and such. But it has to be put on the calendar. Now, sometimes this last part is what it's talking about. Is sometimes a certain senator or a representative will want to get that bill out of the committee because they know they'll probably pigeonhole that bill. They don't like the bill going through that committee. And so, especially in the House of Representatives, that a member can, if they can get at least 218 people, congressmen to sign, that's a half of the people there, to sign a simple majority of a petition. So House rule, if they can get a petition, they can try to get that bill out of the committee to the floor. So if they get enough petition, this is called a discharge petition. So basically, both in the Senate and in the House, they have this discharge position to get that bill so that it won't be like treated by that committee and rejected by that committee. So the discharge petition is a motion that can move that committee bill straight to the Senate floor. It's rarely used, but if a senator can go in and get enough to petition, they can go through this discharge petition. They can get that bill out of that committee and onto the floor. So, which I said before, rarely happens. So floor, what does it do in floor? So remember, we had just the introduction, and then we had it going to the committees. So it's introduced, it goes to the committees, and now it has another hurdle to go through, and that's the action on the floor. It's called floor action. Floor means that they get up and debate it standing up on the floor, right? So the floor action, they successfully move the bill out of the committee. It goes to the floor, and this gives it the opportunity for everyone to hear a debate on the bill before they vote on it. And so in the Senate, let's see here, in the Senate, it's unlimited, or that's the debate on the bill. But in the Senate, sometimes they use what was called the filibuster. So what's a filibuster? So sometimes senators will use this privilege to try to defeat a bill by using the filibuster. And it's an attempt to kill a bill by stalling the vote on it. The key weapon in a filibuster is talking. A filibuster is a person gets up and they want to stall time, so they run out of time to vote on the bill. They may not like the bill, so they just get up and they're just going to talk. So they talk on any topic. In fact, Senator Strom Thurmond of South Carolina in 1957, he took the floor and he talked 24 hours about nothing, really. And then in 1935, even before that, Senator Huey Long, here's a picture of Senator Strom, who talked all that time. I don't know why they have his picture there. It's like, that would be kind of embarrassing, I think. But Senator Huey Long from Louisiana, he talked for 15 hours. And he ran out of things to say, so he just started reading from the telephone book, the telephone directory. We had a telephone book, and then he took a mail order catalog and started reading from a Sears Roebuck catalog in the midst. This was the effective tactic to defeat a bill, because basically they could defeat that bill. The bill would not be would run out of time to be on the floor, right? Is what they wanted to do. So that's called a filibuster. I really don't like the idea of a filibuster, really, but anyway. But there is a rule for the filibuster. Let's go on to the next here. This rule is called the cloture rule. So basically, the cloture rule is the only effective way to prevent a filibuster to invoke the Senate's cloture rule. 3/5 of the senators have to vote for the cloture rule. Probably like, we don't want this filibuster to happen, so they're all voting, 3/5 of them. And each senator then would only be limited to a maximum of 1 hour to speak on a bill that's under construction. They can't get up there and just start filibustering, talking about nothing, at least nothing that has to do with the bill. But a cloture rule was seldom successful in doing this. But they could get 3/5 of the senators to say, nope, we're going to have cloture. We're not going to do these filibusters. In the House, that's in the Senate. The filibuster is in the Senate. In the House, is a little different. So in the House of Representatives, the debate on the floor has to be limited. You know why? Because they have 435 congressmen, not just 100. They have, almost, 4 or 5 times as many people. So in the House, it has to be limited. So the House Rules Committee, which is under, the Speaker of the House too, controls the debate. And that's the most powerful instrument that's used is the House Rules Committee, because they can limit debate to 1 hour until they're debating on about a bill. They can tell the people that are debating, the representatives, to sit down after 1 hour. So then the bill can go to what's called the House Rules Committee, or the Committee of the Whole. When you think of Committee of the Whole, you think of the whole, the whole of all the people there, right? The whole House of Representatives becomes an entire committee and basically shuts down, and everyone is a part of the committee. And this expedites bills by the House. The entire House sits as one large committee, and of course the Speaker of the House presiding over the presiding officer, and she holds up that mace thing, remember, and puts it down, saying everything's closed now, we're all in committee. And the mace is removed to that lower position, and then the House is technically not really in session. They're all in committee thinking about what to vote on this particular bill. Okay, so different. Senate, we have the filibusters. In the House of Representatives, we have the Committee of the Whole. Okay, so those two things. And then the debate, of course, the debate has gone on the floor for only an hour. If it can go on in the House with the House Rules Committee there, and in the Senate, then there has to be a vote. So how do they vote? Let's talk about these votes. So first of all, they're going to vote on a bill to become a law. You can have a voice vote. A voice vote is very good for uncontroversial bills. Something that, okay, that's good, we all like it, we're all just going to vote. So they all say A or nay, like whether they agree or not, and there's a voice vote. So, but when you have more controversial bills, you'll have a standing vote. So the question of the voice vote, they must stand because they want to make sure, right, and count the votes by standing. So, and these votes, usually the voice vote in the beginning are not made public, but as we get to the standing vote and the roll call, of course, they're made public. So, so if 1/5 of the members are voting, only 1/5, then they may demand, we need a roll call. So they'll have a roll call vote. And at the roll call vote, they'll say their name, and they have to decide on important issues, and they can either say yay, nay, or present. Present means they're present there, but they're not going to vote. Usually a senator or a congressman that says that they're present, they don't want people to know what they're voting, and they're not concerned about either way of the vote. So they just say, we're present, I'm not voting. So you can say not voting on the issue too. And these bills are electronically done. So now, it used to be they weren't, but now they are. So and they're put on the record there by the electronic vote system. So go on from here. So the vote being, when I say electronically displayed, is a permanent record. So you have a permanent record where which is called the congressional record, and that's where it's permanently displayed and what the senator or the congressman voted on that bill. So if the bill survives the vote, then where does it go from there? Well, if it's in the Senate, it has to go all the way over to the House of Representatives. If it's in the House of Representatives, it has to go all the way over to the Senate. So it has to pass both houses. Both houses have to vote for the same bill. So if it survives one house, it has to go to the other house. And again, it will go through the introduction, go on to the committees, maybe subcommittees, onto the floor, and onto the vote. So, and after this, it will go, after both houses, it will go to the president's desk for his signature. And we're going to go over that in a minute. But before the president's desk, it talks about here conference action, as we're talking about conference action. So the conference action, what happens when two houses, they can't agree? One house has passed the bill and the other house doesn't. So what happens in that? Well, then it's turned over to a conference committee. And these are temporary committees that are composed of members of both houses. So I'm going to stop there because I'm getting